Order. Today is Monday, July 21st, 2025. We will have the Open Public Meetings Act read, please.
This meeting was called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was County Hawk, Westfield, New Jersey, the Courier News, Bridgewater, New Jersey, the Star Ledger, Newark, New Jersey, the Union County Local Source, Union, New Jersey, and the alternate press, tapinto.net. In addition, copies of the notice were posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and filed in the office of the borough clerk. Notices on the bulletin board have remained continuously posted. Proper notice having been given, the borough clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. For those that are in the audience, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we remain standing, I would like for us to keep in our thoughts and prayers the two women from Plainfield who were swept to their death with the recent floods that happened a week ago tonight, for their families and for all of our neighbors that have been impacted by weather events. Thank you. We will start off with a roll call, please.
Council President Patricia Walsh.
Here.
Jeffrey Banks.
Here.
Gina Berry. Anthony Carter.
Present.
Erin McElroy Barker.
Here.
Catherine Mitchell.
Here.
Mayor Marr.
Here. All right, thank you. We're going to begin tonight's meeting with a presentation. We have our architect and Fanwood resident, Mike DiBiase, who's here in the audience tonight. Mike's firm, DiBiase and Seminara, was hired by the borough to do an analysis of the borough structure. We had received a grant, and Mike is here tonight, and also in the audience is Joan Skubish, who is the chair of our Fanwood Historic Preservation Commission, of which Mike has been working with. Mike is going to go through the work that he has done and the recommendations of what is needed to be done to really preserve and to repair and to rehabilitate and paint the building, really for the next, going forward. And on the heels of this, we had received news last week that the borough was fortunate enough to receive a $500,000 grant from the state budget, compliments of Senate President Scutari, who represents us here in Fanwood. So when we look at what Mike is proposing tonight, about 3 weeks ago, we really weren't sure where the source of funds were going to come from, because this is a pretty significant investment that we have to make, but we were going to make it. But today we sit here knowing that we pretty much have it earmarked for a substantial amount, and then we're going to seek another grant that we know is coming up from Union County to look to close the gap. So with that, Mike, I will turn it over, and if Joan, if there's anything that you would like to add throughout the presentation on behalf of the Historic Preservation Commission, please feel free.
Thanks, everyone. Hello.
Yeah,
so what we did on this project was the most important thing was we did research from the beginning. So I think that a lot of times older buildings, that's not the way it goes. It's like, oh, something's wrong, let's fix it, rather than understanding, what historically it was and what it should be. So we did extensive on-site surveys, and we were essentially crawling.
Mike, could you move closer to the microphone, please? You're not getting,
closer to you, yeah.
and pull it up. Yeah,
That's
thank you.
So, so we started our work by doing extensive surveys of the site, really top to bottom. The first go-through was on the total building. So we looked inside and outside and to ascertain, what condition was it in and what needed to be done. So that was like our first go-around. And then from that, what we're in the middle of now is really just the exterior of the building and restoring that. So then we went again and really went over all the exterior of the building and, look for wood rot, what conditions windows were in, what condition, roof siding were in. Coupled with that, we also had a architect conservator on board, so what they did was research the building in a historic way to understand, you know, what was existing fabric that was there, and try to, you know, understand from old photographs and from, a lot of times they got it from old postcards and stuff to see exactly what was on the building. They also did a extensive paint study where they did a microscopic study of paint samples that they took, I think it was 35 paint samples on the exterior to understand all the layers of paint. So it was sort of like the tree ring kind of approach to it, which was very interesting. And that's what led us to say, okay, what kind of, you know, what is the paint that we're going to use for the final? Because the idea is to rehabilitate it, you want to bring it back to it's a story, you know, when it was built, what was it painted like. So that was kind of the research. Right now we're in the process, and this is just an excerpt of one of our drawings of telling a contractor what they need to do to the building. So there's things like, you know, you need to replace this member, it's damaged, so you're going to replace it in kind, or you're going to repair it. You're going to repair it with maybe an epoxy repair or something like that. And then, of course, the major part of this is after we fix everything, we're going to then strip the building. It's been so many years with paint that if you really go look at it close up, you could just see that it's really caked on paint. And I feel that if we just paint it again, it's just not going to last. So we want to strip the paint off and then repaint it in its historic colors. One interesting thing we're going to do for preservation, we're going to keep an area. We have to select that and leave it alone. So there's going to be a small little area, sort of like what they did at Grand Central Station in New York, where they left that one dirty spot to let you know what it you know, that didn't get touched over time. And we're going to do that same thing here. The major things that we're going to accomplish here is the upstairs attic dormers and the windows. They're very old. They've already been replaced, but they're very old, and they're now letting water infiltrate inside the building. So that over time is going to just deteriorate other sections of the building. So that's like a major component, because if you look at the dormers, they actually make up, the windows make up the whole gable end of the dormers. So we're actually taking those out, which is essentially the whole side of that gable end, and we're replacing it in kind. So interesting that the trim up there is some of the fabric that's actually original to the building. So that is another little wrinkle that we have to, we want to preserve that. So we're going to sort of take it apart, fix it, and then put it back together. And this is one of the reasons why things, you know, cost a little bit more than just your, you know, what a residential project would be, because it's, you know, having to preserve things, you know, and not just take it off and replace it. So there was a little diagram here of, this is what our conservator put together, and all the red is actually fabric that has been lost over the years. So the upstairs shows that the windows aren't original, but around that little trim around there is. So, but you can see, like, over the years that, yeah, a lot of things have been replaced, you know, and all this nice gingerbread around the eave of the station, which really gives it its character. It's you know, Victorian character. You get those beautiful shadow lines. That actually has been replaced. So that, but I kind of point that out because I feel like I've seen pictures of it back in the 70s and 80s where they didn't have that trim on, and it really takes the building. The building's not as a nice looking building without that gingerbread trim. So. So the big thing is dormer windows. We're going to replace the second floor windows too, because none of them are operating. And we'll replace them with a historic type of window. It's going to be insulated. Those aren't insulated, but will, you know, be up-to-date insulated type window. And then the other major thing, like I said, it's replacing some rotten trim and then stripping the paint, which is the big thing to do. It's going to be a tough project to strip it all down, prep it, and then repaint it. So tedious work. The good thing we have, it's not a big building,
Right.
but it's tedious work. There's minimum, like the roof is in great shape. All the roofs are in great shape. There's a couple of repairs we're going to do, and structurally, we just have a little bit of repair to do. So that was something that we weren't sure about, but we had a structural engineer go through the project with me, and we've only discovered, a few things that we're going to have to fix.
That's
Most of
great.
it's in the attic and basement, which is very accessible, so it's easy to fix. Do you want me to go on to showing you our rendering yet?
Sure.
Yeah. I bought these, you can pass them around. These are the historic colors that we've come up with, so I'll let you pass them around. And we have a rendering I'll show you, and our drawing kind of tags these colors into what you're going to do. So that's kind of the palette. It's very similar to what's out there now.
So, Mike, why don't you just talk a little bit about how you got to the colors, right? Because you go back to the building when it was built, and they didn't really use paint at that time.
Yeah, so we did like I said, we did a finished investigation report where they came in and give us a little bit of history about what they found when they peeled back those layers. And the interesting thing we got out of it is that they came back to the original layers, and what we found is they were all varnishes and shellacs and faux finishes that were on the building. And that sounds great and everything, but it's like really stuff that modern, first of all, the paints don't exist anymore for VOC reasons and all that, but we just don't have the artisans that can actually do that. So it was a very decorative painted building with faux wood finish, faux wood graining and everything. So with that in mind, we decided, okay, that was what we called the first campaign of painting, and we said, let's get to the next campaign that we can actually reproduce. And it happened to be the second campaign has paint, so they actually started painting it. That's something we can match, and that's what the chips that I'm showing you here. There was some faux finishes on that, so we're not going to faux finish it, but we're going to paint it, as closely as we could in that second campaign.
Mike, out of curiosity, how many layers of paint were on it?
You know what? That's a great question. I should know. It was, I think it was in the high 20s.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's how we got to what to paint and where. And then there were some other things like because some of the historic fabric was gone, we have no idea what the paint was. So for that gingerbread around the top, that was all gone. So what we're seeing now that the green is there, that's just somebody else's guess. Maybe they had some information that we don't know about, but we really don't have anything that can define it as that color. So we kind of got this palette and then decided, okay, what's going to look good with that? And it kind of stayed similar to that greenish color is what we stayed with. And I think the biggest thing you'll see that changes is the reddish color of, when we were used to that like browny red where the timber looks like it. The new color scheme is going to be a dark gray. So it's called like tavern charcoal or something. So it's very similar.
Very similar.
In what we have there today, but it's just switching out the.
You can turn it around to the audience while they're here, so they can.
And I think it looks nice. I think it's.
We might have to get you back to the microphone just so that it gets picked up.
Yeah. So.
Is that going to be a door on the far left where that, we talked about that just panel I think it used to be a door.
Yeah, there are some, no, we were not, right now, because there's the fire alarm is right behind that wall, so we really can't put a door there because there's equipment right in the way. There are a few openings that are missing on the building that have just been filled in. Right now, this project doesn't include adding new doors. You know, we're keeping the doors that are there, and we're just going to...
So will that just be the flat panel?
Yeah, it would just be the siding that's there now. There is the one opening that's closest, I think it's right here. Yeah, this opening is
Yeah.
actually a piece of plywood.
Right.
That's going to be changed, and we'll just put it as clapboard siding.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it will look better than what it is now, yeah. But we don't intend to put any new openings. The only original windows in the building are the first floor windows. And right now, it's, you know, because they're protected under that big overhang, they don't operate. But I'm not sure where we're going to go on that, because that's like, right now, they're kind of fine, as long as you don't want to open them up. So we have to figure out where that goes, whether we have enough money to then refurbish those. But I actually think that could be part of an interior renovation in the future, and that would be more, you know, if they're going to redo some stuff in the interior of the building. I know there's been talk about trying to get the wood flooring back and,
Yeah.
you know, take out the tile, but that's not part of what we're
It's
tackling
the
right now.
exterior.
We're just sticking with the exterior.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes. Once you strip it of all of the paint and the varnish,
Yes.
what do you anticipate the wood to look like? I mean, is that going to need,
That's going to need some prep, yes. We're going to need some fill, do some, paint prep, which would be like filling. There might be some, there's only a little bit of like siding replacement. There's like a few boards that just need to be replaced if they've split. But essentially, because it's a painted building, we can strip it back, sand it, and then fill in holes and then prime it. So I feel like that as long as it's not, as long as it's a stable substrate, it's not rotted, that will have good results with the paint job.
So what's the next couple steps, Mike?
So the next step is for us to present an application to the state historic preservation office to get their, because since it's on the register, we have to get their okay into what we're doing. So we're going to present the drawings that we have. We call them like 50% documents. They're probably 75% done in my estimation. And I feel like we're following the rules of historic preservation, so I don't feel like we're going to have much pushback from them. But I think it gets down to like when there's the one thing I didn't mention was I wanted to restore some fabric back into the center of the building. There were some trims that I think really make the building nicer, and we've just lost it. So I'm trying to from photographs we're replicating that. But sometimes historic, they have to get on board to what material you're using to do that. How is that going to be done? So it would be in here, which is not shown on the rendering, but it would be in here.
Okay, between the second and third
Yeah.
floor.
Was that gingerbread detail kind of curved at the top? It's got like an arc to it.
Yeah, this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to submit that. The commission is okay with everything that we're doing?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and then I think once we get their okay, then we can finish our drawings to 100% and then start bidding it to get a contractor to do the work.
Do we have a cost estimate? Of course, you have to wait for the bid, but when you put it all together, you have some idea of what the bid should come in.
Yeah, we do. We're right now, as our 50% documents, we've prepared an estimate, and we're at like $875,000 to do what I described here.
Thank God for the grant.
Yeah, so it is, the $500,000 is a lot, so that's, you know,
Labor and stripping.
Right, it's a labor
It's a
intensive
labor-intensive
project.
job.
yeah, it is.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, so Mike, you gonna leave the picture?
I'm gonna, yeah, and I left it for you, we put a little thing on the back so you can hang it up somewhere.
Awesome. We'll put it upstairs so that when it actually begins and people wonder what we're doing, we'll be able to tell them. And I want to thank the Historic Preservation Commission for working with Mike. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's going to look great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the next milestone is that we'll let you submit these. We'll hear back from the state. And then from there, we'll be able to finish up the documents and create the bid documents and then go out and see who we
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, I think the next big thing to get is a contractor who's well-versed in this kind of work. And
Yeah, we
that-
can make that as a experience and qualifications.
Yeah, because I think that's a big key to this.
I agree. Thank you. Looks
Thank you.
really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. Moving on, next on the agenda is the approval of our minutes of our meeting from June 30th, which was a special meeting. I believe that was for our housing element plan. If there's no comments or questions, may I have a motion to approve those minutes of meetings?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. I'd like to have a motion to open the meeting to the public. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is our first of two public sessions for the public to come up. So if you want to come up, state your name and address for the record.
Michael Lewis, 41 Beach Avenue in Fanwood. I noted Resolution 2025-07-126. It's on the consent agenda. When you get to that one, could you please elaborate a little bit
Sure.
on the amount of the contract,
Yep.
terms, and how long, and any significant differences relative to what was out there previously?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anybody else wish to come up?
Gary Morris, 405 South Avenue. I was wondering if you've gotten a chance to see or read the minutes of the planning board meeting.
I have not yet, no.
Okay. Essentially, I found this, and I emailed you and Anthony as well, about the front setback
Yes.
situation.
We
okay?
did receive
So is-
that email, and I think you sent it to Ray, our
Yes.
zoning officer, and so we will, I don't know if anyone emailed back to you, but we did get it, and I believe, Jesse, they're looking at it right now?
So my question is, and this is for anybody who's here, basically, essentially, that zone, the CCE zone, says front setback, there shall be a minimum front setback of 10 feet and a maximum of 20 feet to create an area for landscaping, open space, or a courtyard. To the extent possible, the front setback should be consistent with the setbacks of buildings on adjacent properties where a building on adjacent properties exceed the maximum permitted setback by more than 10 feet. Now, I discovered there's actually a typo in that last section that's actually correct, I believe, in the CCW zone, where it says, to the extent possible, the front setback should be consistent with the setbacks of buildings on adjacent properties, except in instances where a building on adjacent properties exceeds the maximum permitted setback by more than 10 feet. I don't know how you can interpret this any other way, but they need 20 feet setback on the front and 30 feet setback on the back. And they need a variance or they can't build that building, as far as I can tell. So I don't know how that got missed in the mix of things, but that seems like a major thing, and that basically saves our neighborhood. And I really think we need to explore that issue, because it's big. And that's what prevents you creating a zipper effect where you have stuff close to the road, stuff far, and back and forth. That's the intention of the law, is to make it so you have a smooth frontage, and that will be a mess if that's allowed to stand the way it was proposed. And I've spoken at length about other things. It seems like every time we find something wrong with this, we tend to favor the developer. And I really need somebody to evaluate this, because I think it's very plain English here. This is straightforward, and I really want to know what we can do can we rescind the approval at this point and go back to the drawing board so that we can make something that's reasonable. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the RSIS standards. I know we have the 1.5 cars per apartment unit, but the RSIS standards also have a requirement for 0.5 parking spaces per unit for guests. That is in addition to whatever the other requirement was, and there was no talk of that in this meeting, and that's wrong. And there's actually something in the CCE zone that says you can't have people parking on the street. So even though the state law says some of those parking spaces can be in the street, CCE prohibits that from happening. So again, if you put 8 more parking spaces under that building, it doesn't happen. And you add these setbacks, it doesn't happen. So please help us on this situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Yannick Salazar. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I live at 45 First Street here in Fanwood. I'm one door down from the Soho. I'm actually here to raise privacy concerns regarding the building. Before I continue, I did want to thank members who are here present who are on the planning board for assisting in making small but very significant changes. I don't know if Pat is here, but I would like to thank him or her for pointing me to the final minutes for the meeting regarding the Soho. I'm sorry, her? I will absolutely, I will send her a second thank you note, thank you. And so I do want to thank you for the shrinking of the number of the apartments down from 62 to 58. That takes it down by 1 floor, and I appreciate that. The gazebo, which was once a potential noise nuisance, is now gone, and I thank you for working for that as well. Exterior trash areas, I still have concerns regarding overflow, but rather than being open, they are now closed, and I appreciate that. However, yesterday morning, when I went and stepped out onto my backyard, I saw something on the upper left-hand corner of the rear of the building that resembled a balcony. Through the minutes that I've gone through, there's been no confirmation as to whether there will be any buffer trees between the building and, which would be my neighbor's lawn. If this is the case, if that could be something that is published or found, or a question that could be answered, I would greatly appreciate it. Because if indeed that is a balcony, then there is no tree tall enough that's going to protect my privacy. This was something that was raised in the last meeting. This is something that I know that, persons such as myself, Gary, and the other folks who are living near the 383 project have also expressed concern over. It's been 5 years. I know that things have been pretty much set, but this is a new concern that I really need to have addressed. I think that there is a reasonable expectation of privacy in a town where there are single-family homes, and I believe that it is unreasonable for somebody to have visual access to my yard. Further, and these are just minor, they're not minor things actually, there were things that I wanted to point out. I am not sure who we would be in communication with regarding things like move-in day for the Soho. I don't know if this is something that's facilitated, by the planning board, or if there's anybody specifically whom we can contact. According to the final minutes, it is written that it will be done during reasonable hours, which is incredibly unclear. This morning, both ends of the street were closed off because there was a large delivery of construction materials. This is something where, if we are going by the same analysis that was done during COVID, where it was decided that there was nobody home between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., which is still incorrect after 5 years, this is something that absolutely gets in the way. And so if this is something that the street needs to brace itself for, I do ask that if there's a way to find out what reasonable hours are, that would be very much appreciated. And again, the reason why I keep asking, who can I speak to, who can I contact, And I know it may not seem urgent. I don't know what everybody's living situation is. I don't know if privacy is something that is a consistent issue. I'm not taking that away from anybody. But this is something that, over time, I hadn't realized was really going to affect me personally, as well as my neighbors down the street. Clearly, there's nothing more that I can do about it. My understanding is that this building is pretty much almost finished, but I am taking a more proactive stance. If there's information that I can have that I need out there, I'd be greatly appreciated if I could email anybody regarding this. I need to know what reasonable hours are.
Sure.
I need to know what we need to brace ourselves for, essentially. I personally still have concerns regarding the increase in density. I don't know if the street can sustain things like overflow of parking. The other thing I don't know is if the street is going to be limited to be residential parking only. That is something I'm also unclear about. To point out, this was something that my neighbor across the way had also pointed out. This gentleman is actually putting his house up for sale because he does not want to live near the Soho. It's a massive interruption and not something that he himself can sustain. And I would say that that's really the most important thing, is that if there is information, if there's anybody, again, I know I'm being repetitive, there's anybody whom I can speak to,
Sure.
please, yes, please let me know.
Yes.
I know that some of this, I assume that some of this may be dealt with in terms of the building management, perhaps.
Yeah, but we can help you with that. We can, I can put you in touch. Her name is Liz Jeffrey.
Ms. Jeffrey.
And Liz is the one that works for the borough, that really is on the ground, and we can facilitate. So I'll make sure that she reaches out to you. If you can, well, Pat has your contact information?
She does, yes.
Yeah, so Pat and Liz work very closely together.
Okay.
So that she can meet you out there and can walk through everything, and some of those things that we had talked about with the move-in and how that was going to work. We didn't know exactly how it was going to work, which is why we tried to put some bumpers on it, but now that we're here, we can actually control some of that with conversations with the owners. I know that they are also going to be repaving the entire length of the street from south to LeGrand. So that should be done, that's going to be coming up shortly. And so I know that you might get notices for that. But that was something that, we had kind of asked them to do, just because they'd been on the street for so long and it's been taking so long from the construction point of view. But Liz will be a very good person for you to work through. And, you'll like her, and she'll be able to advocate for you.
I do have other concerns. Could I present
Sure.
them, or am I past my time limit? I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this.
Absolutely.
So I'm to assume that First Street is going to remain a one-way at this point?
No.
Really?
No.
When can we accept?
No, I
expect this?
think that was done during construction, right? And so I think we've been talking about with the police of when they're going to be done with moving the stuff in, so there's not the intention to keep it as a one-way.
Thank you. That's actually also extremely helpful because,
Right.
Again, move-in day was a massive concern. If we're going to be losing the one-way off of the street, that's not going to be very helpful. The other thing that I also wanted to point out, and again, I don't know how, if there's any influence over this regarding parking currently with the construction company, there has been an overstay in parking by some of the contractors on our street.
Yeah,
Not too long ago, there was a gentleman, I don't know from which aspect of it, whether it's electricity or plumbing, I don't know, left his Ford F-150 across my street for about 4 days. And
Yeah.
I did not know. Normally, I don't complain, I don't care, you have a car, you can park it on the street, it's not the biggest deal. But I don't know that car. I don't know why you're here, and if you're working here, why
Yeah,
are you leaving this
that's-
for 4 days? That's not acceptable, and this has happened a couple of times with other motor vehicles as well.
I know that the police have been trying to really monitor that. I know Lieutenant Krantz receives a lot of calls from the neighbors on the street, and that they get out there in the morning. We were really trying to insist that they, start making sure they leave the street the way that they find it in the morning, and so I think that's gotten a little bit better with at least less of the stuff on the street. But the police are well aware of the parking there, for sure.
My final question regarding retail, I have heard that the places that are going to be opening have already been decided. Is there any further confirmation as to what kind of retail establishments we're going to be getting?
Yes, as I understand it, one is a hot yoga studio, and the other one is a light therapy studio, Light Beam, which is, I believe, the same family that owns the Fanwood Mattress Factory further up on South Avenue are opening up a business there.
Certainly, what are the projected hours of operation for that?
I don't know that.
So that would be something I would need to speak
Yeah,
to.
Liz would probably know.
Is there any kind of ordinance regarding that? But I'm sure that I could ask Liz then, right, if there's any ordinance regarding hours of operation.
We do have hours of operation, yeah, but when things open, things close, I just don't know. Usually retail is, maybe 5 or 6 days a week, and it's usually 10 to, yeah, I'm not
Sorry,
100,
10
but I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if it's going to be something like 10 to 10, I would like to know. I'm
Yeah.
nobody to get in the way of a man and his money, but again, this is information that's very much needed. And I do just want to close with a comment. I know that this has been a, massive bone of contention, and I come in peace and I come in absolute respect, and I thank you for having this dialogue with me. But I have to say that I'm of the opinion that it would have been a much better investment to build several single-family homes here in Fanwood. I've never owned a home in my life. My husband owns his home. I've only come to live with him. I've been a renter my whole life. I understand now what it is to purchase a home, to do the research, to really invest yourself in where you're going to be dropping this money. My belief is that when you purchase a home, you want to keep the value of the property. You want to maintain the value of your street, your neighborhood. There is solid investment in where they're going to live. And again, as someone who's rented all their lives, I don't mean to talk any, garbage about it. What the Soho suggests is that we're going to be having a rotation of residents here, essentially. I can tell you from experience that there is no loyalty to any kind of apartment unless you've purchased it. And I know that this is really more with the company than anything, but regarding the rental prices, and this is probably more company than anything, I feel that it is incredibly inappropriate to charge what they want to charge. But the most important thing, and the thing that really applies to the council, is for any future projects, I don't know what's ahead in your agenda. I am keeping an eye because I am curious, and I would like to see what those plans are. Please consider that there is a more solid investment in people who are planning to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come up?
Mayor, there's a question on Facebook. There's a question on Facebook. I don't know if you want to take the black in person.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Bud Lavin, 456 South Avenue. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor, Jesse, Pat, for spending some time with me about 2 weeks ago on a Zoom meeting to explain to me in depth the concept and how we got to where we are with the sewer tax currently with the ordinance. I bring up the question because since its inception, I've always paid the base rate as a homeowner, never had to pay more than that. And then this year, well, 2 years ago, I installed a sprinkler system, which apparently this past year, for the bill that came up this year, my meter usage last year was just a little bit over into the next tier, so which increased my rate by 43.4%, I believe it was. So I'm at $330 now. I understand how we got there and all, and they also made a suggestion that I look into the getting a separate meter from the water company, because then that wouldn't be counted in what you guys use for the calculations. However, in speaking to New Jersey American Water, I called twice. I got two totally different stories. The first one said, "Oh yeah, no, we'll put one in, no problem. It's free. Don't worry about it. Everything's taken care of." And then when I called back to say, well, I said I'll call back and book it. And when I called back to do that, I just want to clarify, and I was told no. There's everything from I have to pay a plumber to prep things. I'd have to pay them to install it, which wouldn't give me a price for. I have to pay another monthly service fee of 20, which is essentially matching what I'm currently paying on my service fee for my meter. For the months it's in use, they would be fair to turn it off, they said, when I'm not using the sprinklers. But then I'd also pay the same usage rate that I use for what I'm using for in my house. So as my point is that, and I spoke to them about it at length, is that I think that I understand when you guys designed this, and I wasn't here for any of it, so I don't know the whole backstory of how it was designed. But I think that there should be some consideration for people who have an irrigation system, and also people who maybe have a pool that they use a lot of water for that doesn't go into the sewer system. So I'm just asking, how do we open the discussion to possibly modify or make changes to the ordinance to allow for that kind of stuff? Because today it's, this year it's $100 and it's 43%, but who knows what next year or the year after or 5 or 10 years from now. By the way, I've been here We've been in the house 26, 27 years, and I've been a resident here for 29 years. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know.
How you doing? I'm Tom Gordon. I'm at 164 Russell Road. I'm here basically to echo what Bud said. I think that the current, the core issue is the way everything's being calculated. We're being charged for a sewer fee for water that doesn't go into the sewer. You know, it's irrigation, it's, you know, for your lawn, for your garden, pools. I'm filling up my hot tub a couple times a year, you know, changing the water, and none of that goes in there. So I just want to see what the procedure is for getting this changed, where maybe calculate the yearly fee October through March, and then double that, and that'll give you a true usage fee of what actually goes into the sewer. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? No? Okay. So, seeing none, may I have a motion to close the
Mayor,
meeting?
there was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Carolyn Brink of 54 Helen Street wanted to know why the town has not joined the New Jersey Small Towns Local Leaders for Responsible Planning lawsuit.
I'm not really sure what that is.
That's the law. I believe that's referring to the lawsuit when the new round of affordable housing number came out.
Oh, because I think at the time,
That sued the state.
right, I think at the time, they were looking for, Jesse, if you remind me, they were looking for money for us to join the lawsuit, of which we really didn't have that funds to really to put towards a lawsuit. And in the end, I believe that lawsuit was not successful. Thank you. Yeah.
So the mayor asked, well, we're aware of a lot of the feedback. We've received the feedback, especially about the water usage in terms of irrigation and pools. And I think it's important to note that we are very sensitive to the cost of the sewer fees. I've been on council about 10 years. I was chair of A&F for 3 of those years, and I was on A&F prior. The current way that we calculate the sewer fee is our 3rd attempt at trying to develop as fair a sewer rate as possible that would also fund the utility. We have prepared an FAQ again this year. We've done it a few times to answer a lot of questions sort of about how the rate is calculated and what the money is used for, why we came up with this, why we do it this way. But it's important for me to say that I do appreciate the fact that this is not a perfect way to do this. And we know that. It is, and that we tried it 2 different ways, as I said, the first year and then the second year that we did this, and those ways were unfair in other ways, at least perceived to be. And one of the ways was horribly unfair to the businesses. So a few years ago, like during 2020, we contacted our engineering firm to kind of help us figure out the best way to raise enough money for the sewer utility and the fairest way for the residences and the businesses. And many communities in New Jersey do it this way, and so they recommended this way with a tiered system. And the reason that we have a tiered system instead of a flat fee, which is also frequently used in other towns, is because many of us felt 5 years ago, especially, that there was still a large portion of our population of like single people or retired individuals who maybe didn't have children at home and whose water usage was considerably lower than the rest of us who had families. And we didn't want to penalize people with smaller incomes, retirees with fixed incomes, and charge them for the water usage of families of 4 and 5, and et cetera. So the tiered system seemed the most reasonable way. And then, of course, there's a tiered system for businesses and mixed-use buildings as well, where they do pay more, but proportionally. We did try 2 times to recalculate based on, and Trish was involved in finance at that time, to recalculate based on the recommendation a few years ago of just using fall and winter months. And what we found was, at the base rate that we were using, we did not raise nearly enough money to fund the utility. And so we had a choice of either raising the base rate considerably or going to a flat fee or doing all 12 months. And so to date, we have had to use all 12 months in order to raise enough money to cover the sewer utility. I will tell you, since I was part of the planning of this, this was never intended to punish people who water their lawns. I water my lawn every day. It was never intended to do that. We've also talked to pool owners who don't empty their pools every year, so I don't want to get into too much of a debate about how much water pool owners use or how much water sprinkler systems use. I think it's fair to say, as we look at water bills, all of our water bills during the spring and summer months are considerably higher. We take a lot more showers. We all are watering our plants. They're considerably higher for all of us, and I do appreciate that they are considerably higher for people with irrigation systems. My neighbors have irrigation systems, and I don't think they're too pleased with me either. But we had to figure out the best way to raise enough money for the utility and the fairest way across the board. We never intended, as I said, to punish anyone, but there's really no simple way to sparse out money used for lawn watering versus the rest of the house. There really isn't a way to pull those apart, except, as you learned, a very expensive separate meter. The only other method that could and maybe would be considered moving forward is going back to a flat fee, but that has a lot of inequities built into it as well. So I don't know if I have anything else to add, but we do have an FAQ. We've been working on it for a few weeks. It will be posted on our website. A lot of the information is not new because we were asked this a few years ago, and I do want to emphasize that we diligently did take people's feedback into account, and we did go back and do the math. And we just didn't raise enough money to support the utility, and our infrastructure is very old, and it's our obligation to do that. And so we were not able to do that at the time. I will also say that as a member of this council and as a resident here for 22 years, we're always open to new ideas. And so if people have ideas that they want to share, like the people who recommended a few years ago that we look at that mathematically, we're happy to look at that. But we did consult our engineering firm, and this was also what they determined was the fairest way to raise the money for the utility. So it's not that we have ignored people, and it's certainly not that we're punishing people. We have an obligation to the whole community to figure out the fairest way to raise enough money. And so this is what we have come to so far. But as I said, this is our third rendition, and it may not be our last. That's not set in stone if we come up with a plan that's better.
Right, so just a couple things that I want to thank you for that, Councilwoman, because we have spoken about this and really worked at it. And, as you mentioned, and I think it's really worth repeating again, is that this idea of a flat fee is what a lot of our fellow communities do, because they don't necessarily get into calculating. They just understand the amount that they need to raise, and then they divide it. And those flat rates can be considerably higher than what we're paying across the board today. And so we recognize that, and we recognize that we have about 25% of our households here are senior citizens, and that's really what stopped us from doing a across-the-board flat fee or a tiered system that actually comes in much higher than where we actually start off. What we do, just again, what we do with the money is that we take care of our SOARS system. It's over 100 years old. Every time we go and open up a road, if you see road reconstruction, we are using that opportunity to go in to TV the lines, clean the lines, repair the lines, because we know that if there's leaks in those lines, that we are paying it and it's getting into the system, and ultimately when it goes and it gets treated and collected outside of Fanwood, we are receiving those bills. Most communities in New Jersey now have a sewer utility, which addresses the ongoing support of the aging infrastructure, and which is to cover the residential sewer treatment costs in the different categories. Here, we belong to PARSA, Scotch Plains, and the Plainfield Municipal Utility Authority because of just the way that our boundaries flow. And we also have a significant shared service with PARSA, who actually comes in and does on top of it, does the sewer cleaning for us on top of every time we go into a line. So we are trying our hardest to maintain the infrastructure that most people don't see. And we really look towards to do that. I think I speak for all of us up here that we thank you for reaching out. I thank the residents who reach out to us and, want to talk to us and make appointments. The stuff sometimes is not, I'm not able really to get into on social media. That's just not a place for me as the mayor sometimes to weigh in and to go back and forth. So I'm glad to see that you're here. And, we had the opportunity to actually have a Zoom call and to ask the questions, because it's a small town and we're all neighbors and we all run into each other and we see each other, and this is not meant to be adversarial. So we take what you have said here tonight to heart, and I think you have our commitment that we were going to pick this up and we are going to be discussing it, and we will make sure that we discuss it in an open and transparent format, and so that you understand what we're doing and can weigh in as we go along. But we just ask that you understand that we are diligently working on this, and we really do try to do the best versus doing a flat fee, which I would tell you would probably be substantially higher than what many residents are paying today. So I don't know if there's anyone that had just a follow-up question to this. I know I closed the meeting to the public, but I would be willing to open it again if there was any further comments that you wanted to have on this. Okay, so I'm going to have a motion to open the meeting to the public again.
We didn't close the meeting.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay, sorry, I thought I did. Okay, so if you want to just come up to the podium, sir, and just, because I need to get your name and address for the record, and the microphone doesn't pick up, unfortunately, from the seats.
It's Roger Jerry at 127 Pleasant Avenue.
Hi.
I just have a question of the sewer bill, which runs through Plainfield, I believe, isn't that true? And then it goes all, it's just, we are charged from the sewer commission that processes the sewer water, a flat fee?
No, it's all based on a calculation. No, what I was saying is that there are many municipalities around us that have sewer utilities that charge a flat fee to the residents versus a tiered system based on usage, which is what we do.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
But the water from Fanwood is sent through to the processing plant in Manville?
No, it ultimately ends up, I believe, in the Middlesex Utility Authority, the MUA, but it gets passed through to what we call PARSA, which is the Plainfield Area Regional Sewer Authority, of which is like 5 towns around us, like Watchung, Scotch Plains, Greenbrook, Fanwood, and maybe one other town from there, right? And so then we get a bill from them, right? So, Trish, if you want to just talk about the bills that we get.
So they calculate the sewer, so they process for the year, and then they turn around and bill us for it. And then there are 2 areas in Scotch Plains that also, it goes through Scotch Plains before it goes.
Like on Terrell Road?
Yes.
So they also bill us
Midway and
for,
Terrell.
I think it's
Right.
80 homes.
Yeah, and then Plainfield
And-
also.
Right.
So it's metered.
I'm not 100% sure how that flows, our engineer's not here, but we have agreements with houses that are on Terrell Road that flow into Plainfield.
Right, and then it flows.
And then we have the rest that then flows into, because we have to hook up into the municipal sewer that goes into Parsa, and then ours goes into Parsa, and then we have 80 houses, I think, that go into Scotch Plains, which is a completely different system. So we get ultimately
3 bills.
Three bills.
separate bills.
3 separate bills.
And that's what you have to, originally, you tried to split that up among all the residents.
What we try to do is we understand what it cost us every year that we have to pay, and then we feel that we need to also invest in and do work to our own system, so that we try to stay ahead of any catastrophic issues with the sewer, because we still have clay pipes. So that it's a combination, right? It's the fees that we have to pay, the bills that come in from the 3 entities, and then we decided when we started the utility that we needed to have a sort of system of cleaning and maintaining our infrastructure ourselves. And we do that, and that funds, the money that we need, that also gets put into the sewer utility budget. And that's a shared service that we have with Parsa that comes and cleans the lines for us. And then we also have, we also work when we do road projects around town, like the next time you see us reconstructing a road, while we are opening that road up to like take the asphalt mill and pave, we're actually going into those sections of the sewer at the same time and cameraing that and doing any repairs at that time. So that we're trying to systematically keep the system in as decent shape as possible, because it's so old, and as they say, we have not had any catastrophic failures of our system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Yes.
Hello again, Bud Lavin, 456 South Avenue. Thank you for the explanation of the work that you guys have done in the past on the sewer, on devising and the changes and updates you've made for the billing. I mean, I definitely agree that a flat rate for everyone is not the answer. But I do think that there is also, as someone else had mentioned, that there's a way that, not basing it on the 8 months, but if you just took out the months that clearly spiked, because I can tell you that during the time I use my irrigation system, I almost triple my water use, and none of that goes into the sewer. So that's my issue with it. And like I said, this year it's $100, and as a matter of fact, I think I was 3,000 gallons over, which kicked me up to the $100. So it's not like I would, and I'm not asking for anything here, but I'm just saying is going down the road. I think that yes, some people, it's got to be equitable, and I understand for the seniors, someday I'll be there too. But I also have a smaller household than when I first moved here. We had 3 kids; they're not all at home anymore. So we're using less sewer too. So it may raise the water level for everyone a little bit, but I can't imagine that it would be a huge jump if we were able to find a way to exclude this. And I think there is a way to calculate it. It might take a little bit of work. If we did have to submit bills, and as I said in the email that I provided to the mayor and Jesse and Pat, was that people who are asking for this in advance of the calculations, because you guys obviously have a fixed number that you want to budget for next year, right? Or whichever year you're looking at. So if people in advance would have to either apply for a notification to tell the town, this is what I have, I'm asking for this, and submit your information. So it's not like, hey, my bill just came and I want you to change it. That's not what I'm asking for.
Right.
So I think there is a way that we can come up and do it, and if anything that I can do to help out, I'd glad to do that. So
One thing I can say
Yes, sir.
that's worth mentioning is what happens during the summer months. The spike isn't, and Councilwoman mentioned it also, isn't just irrigation. I'm also a person who runs my irrigation more than I should, but I'm also a person whose kids are home during the summer. They're out of school. my other son, maybe they come home from college, and they're out of school, they're taking showers, they're using the bathroom, and they're drinking water. Well, and they're using water. So, yes, my entire bill's gonna spike, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in our 100 some odd households who experience the same thing. So where there are some like you who only have irrigation and maybe the hot tub, there are the others of us who have irrigation and we have those kids who come in. So how are we then to take out those months where we actually are increasing our water usage? It's part of the broader year. It's what happens over the course of the broader year. Maybe it goes down now when the other ones go back to college, and then of course it's spread out over the course of the year. So it appears to, and me being a builder, it appears that the way around that seems to be whatever the cost is, and I don't know what it is, because I've heard free also, and I've heard there's a cost. So whatever that cost is for that other meter that you can tie your irrigation to, really is the only, sounds like the only solution.
Yeah, I'm going to get, I spoke to American Water to actually have a conversation with them coming up next week to just get it once and for all, just very clear, you know, so we can understand, because we've heard not much to cost prohibitive and just a lot of evasive work that has to be done on a property, and in the end, it's really, that's just not, doesn't make any sense for that.
And then the only thing I'd ask too is that if that's the route that we end up going, that there is something in the ordinance that we're definitely not going to be charged for that other meter. If it's definitely just strictly for irrigation, that someone's not going to come up and say, well, you have 2 meters, we're going to charge you for all your water.
Right.
So, that's all.
We will be continuing it, as I said, and we'll make sure that people are aware of that. And we look forward to you weighing in, and we thank you for those who came out tonight, listening to Tom. All right, so with that, if anybody else wishes to come forward? If not, I'll have a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll now go back to our business at hand. We have one ordinance tonight, which is adopting a revision and codification of the ordinances for the Borough of Fanwood. Before we move that, our borough attorney, Russ, do you want to just remind us what this all was?
Sure.
Because it took us about 2 years to get here.
Yeah, about a year and a half, 2 years. This was a top to bottom, backwards to frontwards review of the Fanwood Borough Code, which had never been done before in our history. So what this really entailed was reviewing the code and making revisions and corrections to the code, which involved 3 categories of revisions. Number 1 was the easy ones, which was like punctuation, gender agreement within the language of the code. That was done with the code service pretty easily. The second category was what you see here tonight, some strike-throughs on changing, deleting words, which you have to adopt because deleting a word could change the meaning of a section to a particular provision of the code. And then the last category were the ones where I personally reviewed and I left them in place, and then I kept a list, which I'll come back to later, which would require more substantive changes, like overhaul, deleting certain sections, deleting certain subchapters. So that would be for later. But that was all part of the review, top to bottom review of the code. And what you see, or what you have before you, is the ordinance that codifies the changes that we went through, primarily in that second category that I talked about.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions?
No.
If not, Councilman Carter, would you please move it?
All right, with that, I introduce ordinance number O-2025-10-R and request the title be read by the clerk.
An ordinance adopting a revision and codification of the ordinances of the Borough of Fanwood, County of Union, State of New Jersey.
Thank you. I move that ordinance number O-2025-10-R be adopted on first reading, and if adopted, that the clerk advertise the ordinance as required by law and that the second reading of said ordinance be held at a public hearing at Borough Hall, 75 North Martine Avenue, Fanwood, New Jersey, on
August 11th.
August 11, 2025, at 7:00 p.m., or as soon thereafter as the matter can be heard.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That moves. The next, we have a consent agenda, which runs from 07121 to 07131. We have had a request to just pull for further comment out of that 07129, which is authorizing the I'm sorry, wrong one, not the one. 07126, which is authorizing the borough to enter into an agreement with Bayshore Recycling for further discussion, and we will do that. For resolution 07121, that is just our monthly payment of claims. 07122, this is authorizing the mayor and the clerk of the Borough of Fanwood to execute an agreement with the County of Union to modify the cooperative agreement as amended March 2017 for the fiscal year 2025 and 2026. Is that the CDBG one? Or, yes. Resolution 07123, this is authorizing certification of the Fanwood Borough Financial Audit Report for the year 2024. 07124, this is a sidebar agreement with our PBA, which is a resolution. Resolution 07125 is approving the hiring of a groundskeeper. Jesse, do you want to just make mention of that?
Yeah,
For our
so-
Fanwood Nature Center?
Our previous Nature Center groundskeeper, Phyllis Sandrock, retired a couple months ago, and in working with Councilman Walsh and the Environmental Commission, we're proposing Adam Senna to replace her. He spends a lot of time in the Nature Center, has spoken with Phyllis and understands the role, and we're very excited to bring him on.
Yes, we're very excited to have someone there, and if people don't spend any time in the Nature Center, I encourage you to. The next one we pulled, the other one is authorizing an amendment to the contract for the borough attorney. 07128 is a resolution amending window contract threshold per state adjustment. I've never seen window contract used like that, but that's basically raising the threshold for competitive contracts and quotes.
Correct. It's any contract between 17,500, which is the lowest bid threshold, and what the state allows if you have a QPA on staff. So it's going from 44 to 53 at the top end.
Okay, thank you. Next is authorizing approval to submit a grant application and execute the contract with the New Jersey Department of Transportation. These are the roads that we will be doing next: Ashworth Court, Sun Valley Way, Timberline Drive improvements, which is with a grant from the New Jersey Local Aid. 07130 is a resolution in support of funding Amtrak Northeast Corridor, which is in jeopardy with the federal government cuts. And Resolution 07131 is approving a new member of the Fanwood Fire Department from Scotch Plains, Mr. Evans. So with that, I need a motion.
Second.
Okay, you'll make the motion. I need a second.
Second.
And I have a roll call, please.
Council President Patricia Walsh.
Yes.
Jeffrey Danks.
Yes.
Gina Berry. Anthony Carter.
Affirm.
Erin McElroy Barker.
Yes.
Catherine Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So, Jesse, if you could please go back to 07126. This is the agreement with Bayshore Recycling, who will be awarded tonight a contract.
Yeah, so Bayshore is the material recovery facility, or MRF, that collects all of our curbside recyclables. So we have a contract with Grand Sanitation. They bring it to our designated site. Bayshore had the existing contract. Municipalities are granted the ability under the local public contracts law to negotiate directly, because there's only a handful of sites in our geographic area that take this material. If you go too far out of the geographic area, it starts leading to rising fuel costs with our collector, and so we've had a good relationship with Bayshore. We had some discussions. We dabbled in we searched on alternatives, but their pricing, they do fixed fee pricing for the tonnage. And the first year, I forget if we're paying $70 right now, if not, it's $69. It's a gradual increase to 70 in the first year, if not keeping the same, and then the next year is $71 a ton. The final year is $73 a ton. In a change, we also put in a condition that if there's a significant change in the market, where the value of our recyclable materials increases considerably, we can go back to them and negotiate a different rate. So that basically protects our interests because they do have a fixed fee, but they're also taking a risk as well, and we felt this is fair.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. So now, I'd like to have a motion to move 07126.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Council President Patricia Walsh?
Yes.
Jeffrey Banks?
Yes.
Gina Berry? Anthony Carter?
Affirm.
Erin McElroy Barker?
Yes.
Catherine Mitchell? Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. There is no new business, there is no carryover of old business. We will move into the council standing reports. Councilman Carter?
We have an upcoming meeting.
Okay. Do we have a tax collector's report that needs to be moved?
Yes, we do.
Excuse me.
Where is it?
Courtney, where is the tax collector's
It should
report?
be in your folder.
It's in the packet.
No, the tax collector report is separately. I don't have it.
Okay, so I think you're just moving it for May?
June.
It's for June. That's an error.
Oh, okay, on the agenda it said May.
Yes, I know.
Oh, we moved
Yep,
We did May last month, this is June.
I have May.
it. So I have June in front of you.
Okay.
It was meant to be in your packet, apologies.
I'm with you. No, I moved the tax collector's report for the month of June 2025.
May I? Second. Roll call.
Council President Patricia Walsh?
Yes.
Jeffrey Banks?
Yes.
Gina Berry? Anthony Carter?
Affirm.
Erin McElroy Barker?
Yes.
Catherine Mitchell?
Yes.
Carries.
All right, thank you. Under public safety? Councilwoman Barker?
Yeah, so this is the report for June. Just have to get to the good stuff. Sorry. Okay. So the department handled 1,283 calls for service, 42 on average per day. This is an increase. It's actually a fairly significant increase from the beginning of the year, which was in the range of 800. Included 176 traffic enforcement details and 368 building security checks. Officers conducted 106 park and walk details, as well as responding to 46 medical calls and 20 alarms. During the month of June, 182 vehicles were stopped for traffic violations. A total of 191 summonses were issued. 122 of those were for moving violations and 69 were for parking. Various officers attended a total of 6 trainings, and there were 3 adult arrests during the month. I think it's also important to note for anyone who's interested I think the police department is doing a pretty good job these days of keeping us up to date using their social media. They're getting better at it, so check it out, and they should be doing a decent job of keeping us informed. In June, the police were at Ladies' Night, and several of our officers, as well as Scotch Plains officers and Union County officers, participated in the Law Enforcement Torch Run, which is a significant fundraiser that they do every year. They also participated in Fan Jam and the Youth Academy. And then the only other thing to mention is, 2 things. Sergeant Stomber retired as of July 1. And we are in the process of promoting to replace the sergeant. And we will also be, I I keep wanting to say inaugurating, swearing in a brand-new officer to the Fanwood Police Department in our mid-August meeting, because we have had a few retirements over the last several months. And then National Night Out is Tuesday, August 5th. So that's like movies in the park meets the police, and it's a big fun festival. It's pretty big, and it's pretty well attended, and you can dunk a cop, which is always fun, and eat some junk food for free, so feel free to come out. They love it, the more the merrier. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Banks, you have the rescue squad report, please.
Yes, for the month of June, there were a total of 24 Fanwood emergency calls. The calls that were answered at 79%. There were no second call requests, which is good. The average response time is down to 8 minutes and 44 seconds, and total response hours 126 hours. And oxygen administrations were 5, and that is what I got for the month of June.
Okay, thank you. And the fire department?
Thank you. For the month of June, the fire department responded to 30 calls. 4 of those were structural fires, 2 houses in Scotch Plains. 1 was a garage in Fanwood that they then had to go back again because it rekindled the next day. There were some odors of natural gas, residential fire alarms, elevator emergencies, hazardous materials cleanup, electrical fires, transformer fires, 2 motor vehicle accidents, 2 carbon monoxide alarms, 1 medical assist, a downed tree with wires, and they assisted the police. On June 4th, at 4:37 a.m., the Fanwood Fire Department was dispatched to Farley Avenue. There was a report of something burning at a neighbor's home. This was a detached garage as well. And Engine 7, Ladder 1, and Engine 8 responded and brought the fire under control. On June 5th, Engine 7 returned again to Farley Avenue as the garage started to rekindle. June 7th, 3:03 a.m., Fanwood Fire Department was dispatched to a fully involved house fire in Scotch Plains. Fanwood units spent 6 hours assisting to bring that fire under control. June 21st, as the Westfield 150th anniversary parade was ending, Fanwood was dispatched to Portland Avenue in Scotch Plains to assist with a house fire. Fanwood members were successful in rescuing 2 cats from the fire, and despite the 95-degree temperatures, there were no injuries reported. Also, on the July 14th storm, our firehouse was manned from 4:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. The fire department responded to 12 vehicles in water, 3 possible lightning strikes, and they assisted the police and DPW in closing roads.
So you can see our all-volunteer fire and rescue squad are very busy, and they just were very busy on Monday night, where I believe the fire department did at least 6 swift water rescues from people trapped in their cars here in Fanwood. And so it was like all hands on deck, and so I always have to plug that when our fire department and our rescue squad does any fundraising, to please keep them in mind, because they really are 100% volunteers.
Yeah, I should also thank the police department, because the day shifts stayed on. People who were not working came in, and the police kept us, and I think the public, pretty well informed about what was going on, and did everything they could to help out through the next day. So I want to thank the police department as well.
Yeah, and we just did this weekend, we did a free storm debris cleanup that took place in town. And so it was just a small way for us to be able to help out those who unfortunately had water in their basements or water damage. And I think that went pretty seamlessly over the weekend with that as well. Okay, thank you. Public Works, please.
Thank you. So this is the report from June 13th to July 11th for Public Works. And as the mayor said, Public Works was very busy helping out for the storm, and then we'd like to thank them for their special Saturday contractor completed a one-time bulk waste pickup for storm damaged materials. So they have their recurring monthly activities, the litter patrol and the parks and the buildings, emptying and recycling garbage cans, maintenance of roads and repairs, public works, vehicles and equipment. They removed some leaves and debris from the tops of storm drainage inlets before and after the heavy rains. They have their seasonal activities of mowing and trimming and maintaining municipal properties, nighttime sweeping operations downtown, dragging the baseball fields. Again, the annual June early summer brush pickup is complete, and residents are asked not to place any brush or branches in the street until our next regular scheduled pickup in September. The DPW worked hard in LeGrand Park for the Fan Jam concert, including cleaning up the entire park, installing of fencing, removing tables, putting up barricades for street closures, street sweeping, and they cleaned the entire park afterwards also. There were 3 new property maintenance notice violations in this time period, and the upcoming Public Works events, we have the brush pickup in September 8th and 15th for different quadrants. Just remember, materials must be placed by 7 a.m. on your dates for your quadrants. Also, the permits for bulk waste cleanup in September, you can apply for those. The applications are available online at the Public Works Department or in the municipal offices. And on August 2nd, the recycling center will be open from 8 a.m. to 11 for self-service drop-off. And also, we want to remind you that plastic bags and film are accepted at the Public Works facility by appointment and during the next special recycling event on August 2nd. And that's that.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Berry is not here. Do we have a historic preservation update?
Yes. Historic preservation. Let's see, sorry. So Joan Skubish attended the New Jersey History and Historic Preservation Conference on June 5th in Burlington County, as well as the Preserve New Jersey tour of Plainfield. There is an opportunity from the county for a 2025 Preserve Union County grant that could be used also for the train station, so we want to take advantage of that. And that's because our train station is listed and registered on the historic places, and we are going to apply for that grant. Also, the commission will be participating in the annual 4 Centuries in a Weekend. That is on October 18th and 19th, and the museum will be open both afternoons for visitors. I believe last year we had between 110 and 100 visitors over the 2 days, so that was very successful. We hope that'll happen again. And then, as was mentioned before, Fanwood has secured this $500,000 state grant for restoration of the train station. We do have the distinction of being the oldest train station in Union County, and I think that was it, correct?
Okay, thank you. The Environmental Commission, I know we just hired tonight our new Nature Center steward.
Yes, he's great. He's all excited. He's been there a lot. He lives close by. He's very knowledgeable. Has met with the previous caretaker, and so he's all on board.
And just for those who are watching tonight, we pay a small stipend to the caretaker, who really goes to be our eyes and ears within the Nature Center. So they go into the Nature Center, they really talk about if they see any erosion, if we start to see any littering, if we see any sort of activity going on there. They really, take good care of it on behalf, and we are very lucky.
So the other highlights for the Environmental Commission. The boardwalk was completed, so that's good. They're going to have meditation on August 2nd at 8:30, which last year was a huge success, so we hope to have that again. The Nature Center did its job with the recent storm, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Yes, so just for everyone's information, we had this storm on July 14th. We have these storms coming more frequently. And I'm sure that people have noticed that there's a depressed grassy area between Fanwood Borough Hall along Russell and Watson Roads. If you went by there or saw it during Monday night's storm, this basin was filled to the brim with stormwater. And what that did was prevented many tens of thousands of gallons of water from flowing into the streets. Also, the 8-acre wooded Fanwood Nature Center performed a similar function. The Robinson's Branch Brook flows through that center. It overflowed its banks into low-lying areas and wetlands, but for the most part, the water was ponded in the center of the Nature Center and then absorbed into the ground. And again, that held back hundreds of thousands of gallons of stormwater runoff. And to a lesser extent, LeGrand and Forest Roads, also with their wooded patches, did the same. So we just wanted to point out those two things. And I think that was it for the Environmental Commission.
Thank you. First, welcome back to Councilwoman Mitchell. It's good to see you after a couple of meetings that you weren't feeling well.
Thank you, it's good to be back.
Yes. The Green Team, do you have any update?
The Green Team, I don't know if they're still collecting stuffed animals, but
No,
they have.
they moved on.
Yeah, they've collected over 500, which goes to their mantra of recycle, reduce, reuse.
They're moving on to sports equipment. So they did the stuffed animals, they did blue jeans, they've done crayons, they've done Legos, and now they're moving on to reusable sports equipment, which they will be out soon with a date and a location.
Right. And the whole idea is to keep everything out of the landfill. And let me see, the Shade Tree Commission, we are getting 4 trees from the county, which we pretty much do every September-ish, but we have to apply for them. So, that application was sent in and has been approved. And that's it for those 2.
Okay, thank you. Anything from the planning board, Councilman Carter?
The last meeting was pretty uneventful. The only new business, we had a couple of applications that we approved.
Okay.
The Hill property, Shaughnessy, and there was some discussion about the housing element and fair share plan.
Thank you. Under recreation?
Just want to say thank you to everybody on the Rec Commission for putting on Party in the Park. They did a wonderful job, even though it was postponed today due to weather.
Mm-hmm.
National Night Out's coming up, so, as you heard earlier. So that's all I have.
Right. I know that the 5K, the registration is up.
Yeah, 5K registration is up, yes. I'm sorry.
Yep, and that's one of their biggest fundraisers that they do, and for the people who don't understand that the money that they raise after they pay the expenses goes into a trust fund to help those who may need help in offsetting some of the cost of the programs that we offer for our seniors and for our youth here. So, and they're always looking for volunteers because we need road marshals on the day of the parade, of the 5K. That's a real big issue that we need adults along the parade route. Moving on, I don't believe we have any other reports?
No, the seniors don't meet.
Right, this summer, right. Okay, perfect. So with this, I'd like to have a motion to open the meeting to the public again.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to call forward any members of the public that wish to make comment. Please state your name and address for the record.
Michael Lewis, 41 Beach Avenue in Fanwood, for Mr. Molman, through the mayor. Sometime back, I requested that a letter be written to the county regarding pedestrian crosswalk light at Trenton and Martine. You said to give you a couple of months to get a response back from the county. Did you ever get one?
No.
Or you'd like to get one?
I will follow up with them.
Okay. I want to call the council's attention to something. Speaking of Russell Road, a couple of months ago, I'm walking up Russell Road towards north. Coming down the hill from north, kid on a bicycle, it was an electric bicycle of some sort, headphones on, oblivious to everything, middle of the road. Compounding this, an electric car behind him kid doesn't hear the car. I barely hear the car. Nothing. Accident waiting to happen. I call your attention to this, not to criticize the police or anything, because the police can't be anywhere, everywhere. But I do want to call your attention to something that was passed by Clark several months ago regarding an extensive regulation of electronic bicycles. They had gradations of electric bikes, what would be required in terms of safety considerations for one grade against another, et cetera, and so forth. It seemed pretty comprehensive. I would ask somebody to take a look at this and consider it as a matter of safety. Excuse me, not only to kids on bikes, but also to the drivers who are liable if they hit them. Because I've run into this before, whether you're in your blind spot. It's very easy to hit one of these things, and when you have a kid who's oblivious to everything and not hearing what's behind them to begin with, that's even worse. So please, if you're aware of this ordinance or resolution or whatever it was, please do take a look at it and give it some consideration.
Yes, thank you. I will ask our liaison to the police department. I think I did send some things, because I think Westfield did the same thing recently, right? And I think I forwarded something just for us to be able to have the discussion. I don't know
Yeah,
whether it's...
e-bikes have been on the agenda at our last two meetings, so we'll just circle back to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes go pretty fast.
Yes.
35 miles an hour.
And there's different kinds, and some are allowed on the street and some are only allowed on the sidewalk, and I don't understand them, the police do, but yeah, we'll bring it back.
Thank you.
Gary Morris, 405 South Avenue. I know you touched on recycling. Do we get paid for the recycling?
We haven't been paid in a while because
Okay.
the market cratered
Okay.
close to 10 years ago.
Because one thing just to keep in mind is 40 South still does not have recycling. So if somebody could look into that, I know that's against the law. So that's 28 residents potentially that are just not recycling because the landlord chose not to set it up. And honestly, the reason I'm interested in recycling, I make products out of recycled plastic, okay? That's my job. So if you want, I would be happy to sit in with the planning board when they're planning recycling for a complex. I'd be happy to sit there and be the guy to be the watchdog for the recycling if that would be helpful. I like the thing that you brought up about the trees. Sheelan's clear cut 1/6 of an acre of trees in March 2021. In October of 2022, the planning board accepted a tree replacement plan in which Sheelan's was forced to pay for only 5 trees to be planted elsewhere for $500 each. They were also required to plant 10 replacement trees on the 383 property. Does that seem rather lenient? The latest development proposal from the owner does not mention the 10 replacement trees in their application for 383 South. How does the planning board approve a development plan that does not include a tree replacement plan for the trees owed by the previous owner? Those trees served as a necessary buffer for the neighboring homes, allowing the 383 property to exist as a non-conforming residential property for over 50 years. And again, with the nature of the storm, we were real fortunate. I did look up online like a flood map, and we just happen to be at a little bit of a high point there. I know if you go towards Hetfield, it's a disaster, and you go towards Plainfield, it becomes a disaster during the rain. But if you have a high point that could catch water and prevent it from flowing downhill, it can only be a good thing. We're going to go from like 35% impervious to close to, I think, 60 or 70% impervious. That's a lot of space that's not absorbing water. Secondly, if you haven't read the planning board thing, Anthony Carter was a hero. Quite simply, he was the only one who was against this development. He stood strong and unfortunately was disrupted by the planning board attorney, and he was shut down, which is not really cool. One thing to keep in mind, when you're building something straight on the edge as opposed to stepped, okay? And this is part of what Anthony was getting into in the meeting, was you literally, I did the math, I literally finally did it today. It's 40% more windows face the property next to it as opposed to it just being a straight line. That's just rude, especially when in October we said this was a ginormous monstrosity that wasn't fit for that thing. He came back and made it so it has 40% more window coverage overlooking this person's property. You heard the lady tonight. We just want some privacy. It's not right. Would you want that near your house? And Anthony was bringing it up about, do we need to have, can we have exceptions to have less windows on the side that faces somebody's house? That seems like a really reasonable expectation. My son lives in a community right now where the houses are very close together. They have like one window on that side of the house, and they're not lined up, so you're not looking in people's windows. It's a real simple thing to do to craft ordinances to account for that. I was upset to find out that the planning board attorney's law firm has donated money to council members. That same law firm was hired to be the economic development coordinator for the town in 2020. Does the planning board attorney represent the citizens or the developers? She seems more interested in playing with her phone in meetings than listening to the concerns of neighbors. It seems that every time there is a mistake pointed out in the application process, she rules in favor of the developer. How can an application from a developer be accepted if it does not mention the underlying zone of R75 in the application? It's flat out wrong. Mayor, you know that property as well as anybody. That is an R75, a non-conforming R75. It always has been. It had to be very, very limited. They could never expand that property. I know Brian tried to expand it, and he had to go jump through hoops just to put a basement in the thing, but he couldn't expand a square inch of that property because it was a non-conforming residential property. So again, you can Google it. Is it important to mention the base zone of a property on an application? Absolutely. It gives you and everybody else on the planning board some perspective of this is a residential neighborhood. It's not a commercial neighborhood, it's a residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward?
Kim Jackson, 15 LeGrand Avenue. I'm wondering about the borough's home improvement program, if there's a way to have the mortgage that the borough holds discharged, and if there is, what is the process for doing that once all the requirements have been satisfied?
Sure.
I can take that. Hi, Ms. Jackson. I owe you a phone call. I know you called
No,
me.
I know you're busy.
And I do owe you a phone call back.
Okay.
So, if you'd like, I could talk with you offline about that. There is a process. I'm reviewing it. And
Okay.
reviewing your particular situation. That was one of the reasons I owe you a phone call and was going to
Yeah, I know
discuss that with
everyone's
you.
so busy. I just, I was thinking this is one way to get an answer.
Try to
hopefully,
get an
because I
answer.
did a lot
So
of
Russ,
research.
are you able to?
So, yeah, the program, which was developed a number of years ago, I think, 10 years ago, Trish?
Well, mine is 2014, so.
2014, yeah.
I've
about
lived here 20 years.
It was a
so-
grant program that allowed homeowners
Yep, I
in
remember.
the zone to have home improvements to their property.
Yep.
And then, so that they would not have to pay up front for the service for the contractor. And then through the grant program, the borough then would put a lien on the subject property's home, and not a lien that the borough would actively try to
Right.
foreclose on, but it would be paid at some point.
Well-
So, and we've had a number of these properties where they have been sold, and the proceeds from the sale have come to the borough, and then we have discharged the lien.
But mine is different. Mine is in 2014, it was a 10-year forgivable loan. So after the 10-year period, the loan's supposed to be forgiven. As long as you meet all of the requirements that
But
you're
you had to-
owner occupied.
yeah, you had to keep it.
That you do not rent the property, that you pay your taxes on time.
Right.
So I will take a look at those documents.
Yeah, I have the brochure. You were on council then, so.
Sure,
Yeah,
I probably approved it up when I was on council.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I
I don't
remember
remember
that.
specifically, but I
Yeah, there was a
probably-
discharge element to it because
Right,
the
'cause
idea
it's
was,
causing some problems.
Oh, sure, we
so
can clean it up.
I just want to
Yeah.
kind of move it
Jesse-
along.
Jesse
Do you have
and
it
Russ.
with you now?
I didn't bring it with me
Oh,
now because
okay.
they're kind of important documents and I didn't want to travel
okay,
around with
all
them.
right.
So maybe you can, tomorrow, you
I
can,
will most certainly call.
Okay, thank you.
anyone else wish to come forward?
Hello again, Bud Lavin, 456 South. One of the things I just wanted to mention, unrelated to my previous discussions, that I learned at the planning meeting that kind of opened my eyes was that there's a lot of talk about traffic and how traffic, whether it was the project that's going on or whether it was approved or not what I'm concerned about. But I think what I'm worried about is that the town is responsible for the traffic that comes through it to some extent. I'm not saying the police aren't doing their job, but what I'm concerned about is that with the fact, it was brought up at the planning meeting, that the fact that the school is across the street is going to be opened at some point. It was purchased by the Board of Ed, and within the next year or so is opened
Yeah,
up.
I think about a year.
And I just wanted to make it a public discussion,
Sure.
or bring it just as a point of order, really, or a point,
Sure.
just a point to bring up, is that it was kind of dismissed at the planning meeting, and one of the things that the attorney said is, we don't plan for things. We don't plan for things in the future. And I thought that's a weird statement, because you're the planning board. You know, and it's like, the school bought the property. I mean, there was traffic there to start with. We know that it was a private public school, which most of the kids came in vans and cars, but there wasn't a large amount of kids. Now you're talking about a school that's going to open up where you're going to potentially have a lot of individual parents.
Yeah, I can speak to this
Thank you.
if you want, because we
Yeah.
actually, Jesse and myself, the police, fire, and rescue just had a meeting with the Board of Education, probably about a week ago. They called us in. So what they're doing right now is that it's just going to, because if you remember, they did the large referendum that failed, and then they came back
Right.
on a much, much smaller scale, which was basically just the purchase price of the building. So that building, that school is only going to be housing for now, for the foreseeable future, pre-K. So we're talking babies, right, pre-K. And there are only buses that are going to be, there are going to be not many buses, right? Because I think that they only have to do some if there's disability, I think.
And they're the small buses.
And they're the small buses to begin with. But what they're going to see is and it's going to be regional, right? So it's going to come from around, where before it was supposed to be like a local school, and it was going to be maybe like, kindergarten through fourth, or it was going to be a middle school with a lot of kids. This is a much different model, to be honest with you, and they're only going to be on the first or second floor. There's 3 floors, but they're only going to be occupying, I believe, the first or second. So we're talking, this is a much, 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 much smaller program, because they don't have the funds to really do a tremendous more, because that was kind of baked into the first referendum, and that failed. So this is going to be a much smaller, narrow, and we went over that, and it will be mostly cars that will come right there, in small volumes, because they're only having, I want to say maybe 6 classes, because these are pre-K, they have to be bigger. They only have, I think, 12 kids in a class.
Okay,
I don't have all the details
No,
because I didn't have it. But to your point, I think what is going to be there a year from now, about another year from now, is going to be a much more lower of an impact on the community.
Okay. No, because one of the things too is that, and like I see in some of the other schools around town, especially with the younger kids, the parents walking into school and stuff. And we know that the other side of South Avenue, as you go east, there's no sidewalks and
Right.
stuff. So I'm just concerned, because I do live, like I said, I live at the Bend right there,
We're going to monitor that,
LeGrand and,
yep.
Between LeGrand and Beach, and there is no crosswalk. We've talked about that. There's no crosswalk anywhere. And, cars come flying down the street all the time. And it's, people come through the stop signs all the time, coming onto South Avenue, coming east. which is a whole other issue, but I think it's just that, I just want to hear that someone's looking into this and you guys are considering it, and it's not, wasn't brushed off like it kind of was brushed off.
Yeah, no, and we talked about that at the meeting, once we sort of understood the much smaller scale that's going to be in there. They're not going to have 2 entrances, they're only going to have 1, where before they showed coming off LeGrand. Right now, they're going to keep that one opening on South Avenue. And so we're with the police and the fire and the rescue, we were kind of on top of that.
Yeah, I just want to see, because like I said, I mean, you guys, the police do a great job for like McGinn, at that intersection during school hours when the coming and going happens. They usually have an officer out there. If not, they have a car and they have cones and they definitely have crossing guards. And I just want to, hopefully that going forward, they'll have some kind of a plan for people who, it's only a short period of time, but there are going to be a fair amount of cars coming and going and people walking in and out of there, so. That's
Yeah,
all.
thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward? Seeing that there isn't any, may I have a motion to close the meeting to the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so this is the end of our official business. We will be going into an executive session. We will not be taking any action. When we return, we are only going to come out to expressly adjourn the meeting. And this is whereas the public meeting, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. The governing body may discuss personnel, contractual, real estate matters of attorney-client privilege. The minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires, and the minutes will be made public. Now therefore be it resolved that the council, that the public be excluded from this meeting. The discussion will be executive session for purposes of attorney-client privilege. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, go into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, good night, and thank you for coming out.
Good night.
Good night.